So this session is also about AI and its usage in schools. And the last session also the AI was discussed in detail. So what I will like do is that I will request each of the panelists to talk briefly about your views about AI in education, especially in school education, and issues around ethics and related things. Your initial remarks, and I will then straight away open the discussion with the audience because we already had a excellent discussion in the last session, so we have some base already built up. So, requesting Kamal Gupta ji, you have been like running schools in Singapore, Dubai, and India for a decade now, and you have like seen the usage of IT, which was almost zero a decade, 15 years back, and then we started using IT, and now we are in the age of AI. So how you have like seen this change happening, and what is the impact on the school or the students and the teachers, and how do you see the future?
Think is this hello. Good afternoon, everybody. And we are just away from lunch, so probably some of you may be looking forward to more the break away session, but I think you have to still go through with us. I think the last session very as Raviji mentioned, that the last session elaborately talked about how AI is coming into and how the assessments and everything is changing. um, so a very brief introduction of myself first, so that you know my perspective as compared to my distinguished colleagues, because I come from a slightly different background. I'm not an educator. I more come from a commercial background, so I more belong to the ownership and management side of the schools, and therefore my perspective may be completely different as compared to typically from the what you will hear from the educators. Uh, I come from a company called Cognizance International Academy, which is based in Singapore. We run a Cambridge school in Singapore as well as schools in India. Right now, we are in the state of Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka in Bangalore. So we run both Cambridge and Indian CBSE curriculum schools. However, I've been associated with education for last almost 10 years. And before my current role as chairman of Cognizant International Academy, I was also the CEO for Global Schools Foundation, which is again Singapore based, and they have schools. As part of my that role, I set up a school. There is a school in Dubai, there is a school in Abu Dhabi, as well as there is a school in Japan and Singapore and multiple countries. So now coming to what we are talking here about the AI and its, what's happening in these schools and what we are seeing. I think I will start with a point that technology is something which, whether you like it or not, you will have to take it. And we have seen that for last 20 years ago, from the last 20-25 years, where there was no computer, and the computers came, and then the laptops came, and then the mobile phones came, and a lot of coding and robotics and everything started. Now, coming from there, what will happen to AI? And so a lot of interesting applications are coming in AI now. Whether you, and I think everybody is talking about ChatGPT, and then later on, Microsoft is also going to introduce something, and Google will introduce something. So everybody is introducing something or the other, which is making the life very, very interesting for the educators. I must say, it's making life very interesting for us. And what we see, if I again say from a holistic management point of view, my interpretation is that we need to divide it into three parts. The first part being what should be the role of the educator and authorities, the governments, the ministries, the education, the education, controlling authorities. Combined with that, the supporting role or the primary role which is played by the curriculums. And I must, very frankly say that, at least in my view, the contribution of both the governments and the curriculum authorities in terms of adapting to the technology and driving behind it, creating a framework around it, so far has been, I mean, very frankly say, is poor. Right? At least that's my view. As educators, you may have a different view, but At least in my view, it's so far has been poor. And that is something the education bodies and the curriculum framework bodies will have to work together to create a proper framework of how AI will get it enrolled in the life of a student, in the life of a school, in the management, and everything put together, so that at least there is a framework. Otherwise, what will happen is that people will go all over the place. Every institution will roll out something, whatever they want, and and then challenges will come. The second aspect or the second group is the school itself. That's where we come in as the educators and as the school management, is that how we are going to bring that technology into the school. And that again is extremely challenging because technology doesn't come cheap, it's not free. So there's a lot of cost associated with it. There are a lot of other challenges associated with it, whether it is data privacy, whether it is how do you avoid the discrimination between students and different things. So that is another challenge which the school management system has to cope up with. The third bucket is the student and the parent themselves. In the previous session there was a talk about how the students are becoming so smart that today, before a teacher starts teaching, the student is actually standing up and saying, teacher, you are wrong, because they have already gone into Google and chat GPT and they've already found the answer, and they're telling, sorry ma'am, this is not correct. And the teacher herself is not properly trained to actually counter that. So the how the students have to be guided, and how to create that awareness in them, and the parents, because parents again are struggling, is how do they, what do they advise to the student. So these three systems together, I believe we should call it a triangle: the education authorities and the curriculum bodies, the school management system, and the students and parents. Unless these three sit together, unless these three talk together and come up with a comprehensive network, uh, the the enrollment of technology is going to be is product is going to be inconsistent, and the resultant impact will be on the student. So I think I've taken a lot of time, but we'll continue. So let me pass on.
Excellent inputs, Kamalji. As a administrator and a owner and director of school, you have given a perspective which is a wider and a larger perspective. Uh, Requesting Dr. Lan Hunt, who is the principal of American International School, to speak.
Good afternoon. Um, I find this a very interesting topic because obviously in education, we're trying to develop the students, but it seems as though technology has outpaced developing the students. And so we are very concerned at the school level about how AI and how technology actually impacts the ability to assess a student and to develop a student's capability in terms of critical thinking and problem solving. So when we look at AI from the school's perspective, it seems to be, for me, an issue of cost. As the gentleman mentioned, my colleague mentioned, the cost of implementing and training and preparing the school itself for this technology is very exorbitant. Very difficult for us at the school level to do it alone. So we do need authorities and governmental agencies and the support of ownership to make sure these technologies are implemented. No doubt they'll have a positive impact on children. They'll have a positive impact on their ability to represent what they actually know, but the cost is extensive. So not only the cost, and the second thing is the impact. How much will it actually impact the kid's ability or the child's ability to develop himself? Sometimes students become lazy. If you give them a writing activity, they go to Chat GPT, they say, I need a 5-paragraph paper on this. They come back in 10 minutes, they pass it in, they say it can't be wrong, and then they want a grade for that. But that's not developing the child's writing skills, the child's ability to brainstorm, the child's ability to be individualistic. So I think that while the technologies do impact what we do in schools, they can also hinder the idea of an individual developing. And one of the previous panelists talked about having a spirit, a soul, having individuality and uniqueness. I think that's what the technology lacks, of course, and that's part of what we're trying to develop in a child. I think, lastly, I'll add that when we are teaching children, we also are touching upon their values, their ethics, their morals, and those things come with the human touch that was mentioned before. AI will give you the answer, but it will not tell you what to do with that answer. Your values, your ethics, your morals, where you come from will help you to determine how you will use that information in a positive way. So I think that the technology and the idea of technology uh, coming into or being a part of the educational process is important, and it will be there, as you mentioned. It's definitely coming. But how we prepare our kids to utilize that information is vitally important to me.
Fantastic. Let me request Dr. Joseph Kotarski, who is the Director of Education, US Schools at Talim, to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it starts with making sure that we've built the expectations of how to use these tools. So there's some really good white papers published by the World Economic Forum that lay out some of the future strategies for how to use artificial intelligence in the classroom. And I think that not only entails teaching the students how to use it, but it certainly entails how the adults understand to use it for good in a controlled way. Some great examples of that in some of our schools that we're looking at would be guided reading, for example. We have a program called Amira where the child reads, the voice is recorded, AI uses its language model to diagnose the reading level, which language, which words are not appropriately pronounced, and then it gives that data back to the teacher. So that's a great example of how to harness it for better. To my colleague's point on Chat GTP and kids being lazy and taking it to write an essay. Actually, we should be flipping that, getting them to write their work first, then running it in the language model as a comparison for them to evaluate if they came up with some of the same answers or what's missing. So again, that would come from some grounding of how we use it effectively and efficiently in the classroom. So I think those are the areas that are really unknowns for the educational community right now. Irrespective, in the next 5 years, you'll see even a further massive transformation in the way that these tools are influenced in the class. Um, Teachers really move from roles of teaching to more of facilitators so that the power of personalizing the learning can happen with these tools in place. So it's there, but I don't think the conversations are being had, and the, I guess, true understanding of potential is there yet because it's not been well developed.
Excellent. I think this I like this idea that students write first and then like compare it yeah, with what Chat GPT is giving you the answer. So if it can become an exercise in itself. So it's like using this AI in a creative way instead of seeing it as an enemy self. So let me straight away request the audience to give your questions or any views so that we have our audience views also here. So yeah, you can like give your name, organization, and speak like so that all are
I was just writing down a lot of thoughts and questions are rising while listening to this whole discussion. As I mentioned before, AI is here, whether we like it or not. It's not only ChatGPT, but we have so many other functions that are automatized artificially. And we are using them not even being aware of its full usage. It's a symbiotic relationship. We're not only learning from AI is learning from us. And the most important thing is that we have to stay aware that it's collective intelligence, collective human knowledge being collected by AI. So when we are trying to learn something that everybody else has contributed to, just like a Wikipedia, it's also learning from us. So how do you raise awareness among its users, be it staff or children, what they actually contribute to? Because if a product is free, you are the product, right? Just like Google, just like Facebook, we have to also be aware of what is the purpose. How can we use it in a conscious way to actually reach our fullest potential as human beings? Well, how would you answer that question? Sorry, maybe it was hard and long, but I hope you understood. Thank you.
So, any other views also, and then we ask the speakers to respond. Any other? Yeah. Uh, Please stand up, introduce yourself, and speak.
Uh, Good afternoon. I belong to a generation which finds it very, very difficult to adapt to technology. And yet, I think I am one of those people who believe in technology. It's an example I give you. In a glass bowl, have a number of marbles, and they settle themselves. And you drop one, and there's a lot of rearrangement and reorganization. And eventually, it settles down into it. So, considering that, I really feel technology is like that. It comes into our life and gradually we adapt to it. So, rather than shying away from it, probably we could adjust to it because this is going to be our life. However, one of you mentioned boundaries because what are the boundaries you think should be set or should they be set? Should we just allow technology to seep into our lives as it is and just adapt to it? Or should we set some kind of boundaries for the children I'm talking about, school children, where they adapt to it gradually? Because in the same bowl, if you drop a fistful of marbles, it takes a little time to reorganize and adjust. So, what are your views on it? Should we let them be bombarded by it? Or should we let it seep into it gradually and maintain some boundaries?
Excellent inputs from both our audience, requesting the panel to respond. Yeah.
So
wanna speak?
actually,
Yeah.
to both of those questions, I would go back to what I was saying about schools will more than ever have the responsibility to teach ethical use. So if we look at ourselves right now, everything that we do online is tracked. Everything is generated by your preferences via an algorithm. So children more and more will have to be taught how to disseminate information that is put in front of them, to really scrutinize it, to understand if it's being given to them out of bias versus actual other perspectives. So really setting the stage from a young age and throughout, how are we embedding, I guess, almost like a technical AI citizenship framework for their use, and understanding that information that is given to them. Particularly, we've talked a lot about language models, but we haven't even talked about generative AI, which will create a lot of challenges in the political arena. It will create challenges in communities, in how people's likeliness are represented, and if that information is real or not.
No, I think I'll probably start with the madam there. Right? Human capital. The whole purpose of education is to develop human capital, is not to restrict it. And we, over a period of last 5-7 years, what we have seen, for example, is a very small example. Probably I'll start with is the writing skills, the reading skill. Right. Over a period of last couple of years, what we saw is the declining trend in the students towards writing and reading. So somehow, as educators, we had to bring that back in. So what we did as a school system was that in our curriculum methods, in our teaching methods, we tried to make sure that somehow the students are exposed to reading and writing. So give them that specific time, give them that specific model that they have to read and write. Similar to that, will you come to AI and technology? So again, the whole purpose of the technological intervention is to develop the human capital. And there, what I mentioned was that there has to be a coordinated effort. Probably this answer will combine the through both of you. Is there have like I mentioned in the beginning as well, there has to be a coordinated effort, because again, if you let it go loose, and I must say that, I come from a generation, like you said, that probably we saw computers generated in our time. Uh, Today, the children are smarter than us. There was a quiz program that as a 5-year-old, are you smarter? There's a 5-year-old smarter than you, or you are smarter than 5-year-old. I accept my defeat. I cannot beat a 5-year-old. So the children are smarter than us. But what as educators we have to become is that we don't want to be smarter than them, because that we will be defeated. We have to somehow develop a system, develop a program where we can guide children that whatever technology they are using, in whichever application they are using, how do we uh, convey to them that this is the use up to this extent is okay, but if you use beyond that, then we develop certain mechanisms where we can challenge back to them that no, this is, it's like, for example, if you give a question paper and the student comes back with an answer from chat gpt, as a teacher I will have to be smart enough to make an assessment and show that is the answer from chat gpt or from google, or this is the creativity of the child, because my purpose actually as an educator is to develop that creativity. But if that creativity is not happening, the whole purpose is defeated. So how as an educator I bring that fact into the system, that the creativity is communicated to the student, that copying from chat gpt is not going to be the answer, is not going to be the solution. You have to think, you have to then answer from the thinking process, right? So I think it has to be a lot more coordinated effort. We will not be able to stop children using anything, but how do we guide them is the challenge to the educators.
Uh, just to respond to the boundaries question, I think that when we allow students to have access to information, it's very difficult to then put boundaries on that information. It's like trying to bound someone's imagination. You take them to story time, you're reading them a story. How do we control their imagination and where it may take them? I think that's the seed of creativity and innovation. So I don't think that we can put boundaries on it. I think that we have to just put mechanism in place to support the children who go outside of the boundaries of acceptability and ethics, and then continue to use the technologies to develop their child as an individual. Because I think it's very difficult to put the boundaries on someone once you've allowed them to have access to that.
Hello. I can see that a lot of school uh, teachers or principals are here in the room, and I have a question to you actually. That do you have a case study from your school that you have seen that children are using AI and or using like chat gpt to write answers, and how what method have you used to uh, stop them or detect that they are like using the chat gpt, and how do you stop them from doing it? So anyone has a real case study wants to speak? You want to speak? Okay.
I'm really passionate about this subject, so I have to take the microphone again. I have to say there are wonderful examples of how it has been implemented and so on. Children nowadays, I mean, we say the new generation, but there are actually multiple new generations. So it depends on how young they are. I have two generations of children, let's say one that is in his late teens and one in his early school years. And they use the systems out there in two different ways. So what has happened in schools is that many teachers spend time finding out, okay, where did they get this source from? Trying to show that they can outsmart the student instead of somehow raising awareness of, we know this is from ChatGPT, you can make use of it. Set the framework, it's okay. My adult students have learned so much more of, let's say, how to structurize texts, how to write an essay, set the framework for it, a 5-paragraph essay. I've never seen more beautifully written text ever before. It's not because people know what to write, but the structure looks amazing, but the content is still very empty, if I may say. So you have to somehow make people reach their inner, let's say, voice in order to actually write purposeful essays. That was only one aspect. But children, the younger generation, even younger ones, they're already digital natives, pure digital natives. They know how to navigate this, but they need to be aware of what they are dealing with. This is their reality. But how do they know to make use of it in a way, staying aware that what they're doing today, that means they are in the system forever. It's the digital tattoo they're leaving behind from early childhood until we don't know for how long. Long after we're gone, our children will have a total digital, let's say, profile from the childhood. And if, let's say, I'm just writing up a dystopian scenario. I'm not against it. I love it. I love it. But we have to raise awareness of what we're dealing with. It could go into a monster, say, profiling alert. According to data over 10 billion people, this person poses a threat because the interest they're showing now, it just suggests it could have this outcome. So somehow we have to raise awareness of how to use it responsibly and know that the generations that are growing up now, they are way much smarter than we will ever be because they have access to information. They will also reach an age where they will reach the knowledge level when they mature, right? And the wisdom comes way long after, that's for sure. So how do we help them move on from the information stage to the knowledge stage and the wisdom stage in a responsible way as early as possible? Thank you.
Sorry, I'll keep it really short. And this is about the writing skills and the reading skills you are a little apprehensive about. I want to ask you, in the future, do we emphasize writing skills and reading skills to be of great importance? Because more important will become listening skills, comprehending skills, and speaking skills. So to counter that, we could easily do it by altering our assessment methods. So if we alter, instead of trying to be smarter than them, whereas Chat GPT or other AI tools are concerned, if we just alter our assessment methods, probably we could assess them on a different level. So probably we don't, assess them on writing skills. They speak, they listen, they comprehend, and apply it practically. So probably we could get a step ahead and assess them according to their new needs.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lakshya Chapadia from Delhi, SR Capital Group of Schools. We don't need to stop our children to use AI because AI is the future, and we know how our children have used the AI, the structure, the format. It is the human intelligence. Human intelligence can see the difference. We know how a human can write and how a computer generated statement or a paragraph can be written. So there is a huge difference. But we need to teach our students how to use the AI, how to use the tool effectively. That is more important, to teach our children to use AI effectively, responsibly. Thank you.
I would like request the panel to respond on the feedback we got.
Okay, maybe I can begin with and then hand over to my colleagues. First and foremost, I may have a different view, ma'am, but I still believe that reading and the writing and reading skills to be developed in the children will still remain important in the for the times to come. And I think that's a habit which we should still inculcate among the children. To what extent other methods have to be incorporated into the assessment process? Definitely yes, because a lot of things are coming in, but somewhere we'll have to balance them together. So that's my personal view, but there are a lot of educators in this room, so you may have a different view than me. And but one thing I would emphasize is that, in short, to answer some of the things, because the gentleman here, mentioned about the students to be taught or to be taught or to be guided in terms of how to use AI and all that. I think probably I would take a step back. Is how do we teach ourselves as educators what to teach and how to teach? Because that is going to become even far more important than what the students are going to handle. Unless the teacher knows how to handle a student And ma'am, to your question, that if a couple of different students are coming up with couple of different wisdom levels and the intelligence level, then how do you individually tackle them, individually manage them? Unless the teacher is trained, how are you going to do it? So, as a school management system, I think one of the topmost priority we are envisaging for ourselves is to train the teachers. Otherwise, it's not going to happen properly.
Okay. Um, when I think about what we're asking, the danger of our children having access to these things, I would challenge us to think about some of the photographs, some of the things we see on our digital platforms, our smartphones, and whatnot. We believe what we see. We believe that what is being said is true. I remember, I guess, dating ourselves. If you are watching Superman fly, there were children who would watch TV and think that they can fly. So there were children who would jump off a sofa, jump off of something, and think that they can fly because they saw it on television. When you see things on a digital platform, you tend to believe it. And there is so much out there that's not believable and it's not even real. And AI takes us into that realm where people's faces, people's bodies, people's images, their words, their languages are all artificial. So the danger is that it's psychological, it's sociological. There is a lot to be discussed when we talk about opening up our children to what AI can produce. Children who take photographs of themselves oftentimes use filters. That's a psychological effect because they don't like what they see or they want to enhance what they see. So when we start talking about, yes, it is there, it is going to be there. There are a lot of things that children can have access to, but we definitely have to be careful when we talk about the educational institutions actually endorsing and utilizing these tools. And I think the critical part is what is the effect on the emotional, psychological, and sociological ability of our children? If you can think of your child or someone you know that's under the age of, say, 18, when they take selfies and they may have 2,000, 20,000, what is the narcissistic view of that? What is the idea that I don't look nice, so I have to look different? Who are you trying to please? When you look at the AI, you look at the technology, what are we going to use it for? AI to run a system is wonderful. One would think that's great. If you're going to run a system, you're going to run a motor, you're going to run some things organizationally, you're going to run systemically. But when we talk about introducing it for our students, what are we asking them to do with AI? Use it as a tool to enhance themselves, or is it going to supplant what they're actually trying to do in school? I'm very scared of children who take 40,000 photographs of themselves and all 40,000 have a filter to it. They have no blemishes, they have nothing. And then the psychological effect of reality. When they come to a real situation, can they manage that emotionally, psychologically, sociologically? I just think that we have to actually, like you mentioned, critically evaluate what are we asking the children to do with this tool, and be very careful to monitor what they're doing with it. I don't think people are very aware because I think one of you guys were mentioning that it's not something that we're just in the infancy of it. We're not in the developed stage of what to do with this technology. We're talking about it, but we don't know the ramifications of it yet because our children have not come to that age where they can look back on their digital profile and be proud of it. I would imagine that most children that I deal with at school under 18 will not be so proud of much of what they do in the digital world. So hopefully that profile can be deleted by then. Hopefully they can find a way to permanently delete it because they're not going to be proud. And that's the danger of opening up our children to the world. Because I'll touch on the global aspect of this. What we say now can be digitally enhanced, changed into 100 languages, and promoted all over the world. That's how advanced technology has become. Whereas our children were only talking to their friends at the school that they were at. But now it's all over the world. So what impact will that have on them? And so there's a lot to be unwrapped here and unpacked and discussed. And I think we should discuss it as educators before we hand it to our children and say, here, you can use this because it's here. It's very dangerous, I think.
Excellent inputs, I think. Any other perspective? I think it's too complex, as you have highlighted. And I think about that, like you all would have read that, um, perhaps Steve Jobs who never gave an iPad to his children. Right, like he was aware that give it after an age. A similar situation is with AI, that we're giving AI to kids, and without knowing the dangers of it. It's like really it may have harmful effects. And any other feedback, any views? Yeah, you can introduce yourself and speak. Yeah.
Hello. So my question would be around, in schools, since I was a child, schools talk about future-proofing education, future-proofing children. AI comes out and it kind of throws everything in its head, which proves that we're just not ready for these things. And you said technology was outpacing the rate at which students can develop. I think that will be the case. So in your schools, speaking very practically, what kind of things do you put in place in terms of policy or just things that you would do practically to kind of prepare for this kind of thing? Or what have you done since the AI has come out that, I'm talking very practically now, mindset, you could be embracing education, embracing new technologies, but what are you actually doing?
Yeah, so I think you always have to model expectations, whether it's technology or interactions in the school. So you can have all the policies and procedures on paper that you want, but until you have a culture in your school with your teachers fully understanding and embracing what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and how do you teach that to children, that's always going to be the starting point. So what we see in classrooms is we have them all, whether it's a bring your own device program where everyone has their own device, or if we deploy our iPad carts, it's making sure that you're setting the expectations of how to use it and access what is available to you. I think earlier we were talking about students passing on AI as their work. If you actually think when the internet started, something as simple as Turnitin, when you would write a paper, it just checks for authenticity and how much has been plagiarized. Those tools will still exist for AI. You'll be able to really quickly find out who's manipulated any of their work with some of those systems. But then, equally, let's never underestimate the need for authenticity from our students and from our adults. Um, Students would be needing to explain what their work is and what they've done, and be really intimate with that. And they're not able to do that if something else is creating it for them. So again, it's just about having that authentic touch from your community and a set of shared expectations and norms of how you approach it and develop it. My worry is that it's going to evolve so quickly that we're not going to keep pace. And in order to keep pace, it's about making intentional decisions, and it's going to take constant reviews every single term to figure out what is and what isn't up to date in the school's expectations.
I think most of the time we were promoting as consumers. All the time we use technology as a consumer, and we also train our students use this platform or that platform. And here the discussion was mainly limited to ChatGPT. Actually, I was expecting more AI tools you will be mentioning, and the practical usage of AI tools in the classroom, not only limited to ChatGPT. Can you later on more AI tools that can be used? Again, I need to emphasize, instead of using, we need to develop a skill like creation of knowledge, which is not available or which is not already existing. And for that, I think we need to develop our curriculum as well.
There's actually the Ministry of Artificial Intelligence in the UAE. I don't know if you're aware of that. And they in April 2023 published a really good white paper on 100 practical uses of AI. It's largely driven off of the language model, but I would encourage you to look that up if you're looking for practical uses in the classroom. As I mentioned, there's already a lot happening in the world of ed tech. Uh, Algorithms will play a very powerful part in getting children the content that they need based on their test scores. But equally, I'd mentioned one earlier where you're actually talking to a bot that is analyzing your language and then using the language model to give you feedback. So I just think it's that new that there's not enough published pieces out there. But I'd really encourage looking at the one that I just referenced. It's a really good layman view of what you can and can't do with it.
Maybe I can add to that. Maybe, I think that's a very good question because it's not about chat GPT. It's about really AI has a vast application. And one of the practical examples probably I can share is what we are looking at is that we are looking at the AI integration in our learning management system. And the objective of that is to ensure that the amount of time today a teacher is spending on preparing a lesson plan, right? And that too, if 20 teachers are preparing a lesson plan, is obviously you all know that it will be come out in 20 different ways. Then how do you define the parameters, and then within those parameters, by integrating AI into your learning management system, you can come up with a well defined lesson plan which is exactly tailored to make your requirement. Interestingly, when we were talking to our group of teachers and academic counselors, one of the counselors said, in a joking way to me, that's why you are going to make our life, you are going to make us redundant. And I said, no, 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 that's not the idea. You are not going to be made redundant, but where you will have to change is the amount of time you save from making those lesson plans, and that to inconsistency. You will save the time to go and make individual assessment of each child in your classroom, and then tailor make your response to that. So the time, this is how you're going to make that application. So you use the applications, save time, use that time to do more productive things and more efficient things in order to guide and encourage the students. And a lot of those type of things will come in into the practicality.
I think that this point about usage of AI by the teachers to improve their the teaching. Hello. Uh, Usage of AI by the teachers to improve the teaching itself in the classroom. So, any examples or case studies by anyone here wants to highlight, talk about it, or is it needed? Is it useful? What Kamalji just spoke about that using AI for making the lesson plans, improving it, making it better, faster. Any ideas, suggestions from anyone? Ah,
To respond to that question specifically, is it helping teachers? I think it is. It is indeed helping teachers because they can put a set of criteria into a tool or a platform, and then the plan that comes out will be far more detailed, far more explicit, far more helpful. So it's helping the teachers, shall I say, specify and individualize or customize what is being taught in the classroom, how it's being planned for. So some of my teachers have actually started using it to make sure their lesson plans cover things that as a normal person you may forget. Now you can limit it as to how long that lesson plan needs to be or how many words it needs to be because you don't want a dissertation. You basically just want what it is you need to help this child grow, develop, learn. So it has been used by some of the teachers that I work with, and they have used it to make sure their lesson plans are comprehensive. And it is a very helpful tool to make sure those teachers are prepared.
I think I will add one more point to that is the whole thing about AI is all about data analysis. Right? I mean, that's where AI is coming in, and where the teachers will a teacher teaching system will get significant help from it. Is that again going back to my experience of how the whether you do a summative assessment or a formative assessment or whatever assessment process you follow, there is a lot of data generation. And today, do the teachers do justice to that? Practically, I mean, frankly, I would say in my own system, don't. But when you have tools like this, and then you apply those tools to the data generated from those assessments, and then you are able to make out what are the individual requirements, that is the beauty of it.
okay. So I think we are almost at this end of this panel. A lot of interesting views have emerged, and we will, I think, end it here. Is it okay? Yeah.